But okay, here we have, I think, a Muslim. Amin, what's up? You want to unmute?
Yo, Jay, what's going on?
Hey.
What's going on, Nick? Good to see you again.
What's up, man?
Hey, quick question for you. It's one question, but it's in two parts, and I'll be as succinct as possible. I'm a Christian, by the way.
I'm sorry. I saw Amin and I saw Arabic. I was like, okay, we finally got a Muslim. But
sorry to disappoint.
I'm disappointed that you're a Christian. No, I'm joking.
So the question I have is about EED. I've been reading it a lot for the past couple of months. I read the 150 chapters, read Basil's letter 234, read St. John of Damascus on the Orthodox. I read a bunch of books on it, and the question
did you read book 3 about Christology? Because that's where he really... Okay.
Yeah, I read book 3. I believe that's chapter 15.
Yeah.
And so the question I have, like, I have an understanding of it pretty well, but I don't see any church fathers explicitly stating that wisdom itself is an energy. And the reason I ask is because, 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 4 says, that's a crucial text for EED, being partakers of the divine nature. But James chapter 1, verse 5 says that if we don't have wisdom, we ought to ask of the one of God, and then he'll give wisdom to all who ask. And 1 Corinthians chapter, I believe it's chapter, I'm in the car driving. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 24, I think, says Christ is the wisdom of God. So my understanding of EED, we partake in the energies, not in the essence. Being that we're partaking in the wisdom of God, would that be an energy?
It is. And the answer to this question is in Athanasius, because Athanasius, and a lot of times when he's refuting the Arians, and by the way, I have a talk on this specific question. It's on my channel. It's really old. It's like 7 years ago, because Roman Catholics are trying to use this argument that calling Christ the wisdom of God collapses energy or attribute into person. No, as this gets explained later in the Church Fathers, because we have to understand that the reason that there's not explicit statements in every 1st, 2nd, 3rd century Church Father about every one of these issues is that the issues aren't raised yet. Nobody has really significantly questioned the essence energy distinction until you get mainly to Christology, is where it really hits the nitty gritty. So what ends up happening is that, remember, all of the energies or attributes, they have a triadic movement. They proceed or move. This is called the energetic procession. They proceed from the Father through the Son in the Spirit. So that applies not just to the generation of the persons, but also the movement of the energies. And that means that every energy or attribute, you could also say the Son is the love of the Father. Well, does that mean that Jesus is love? Because we also have statements that the Holy Spirit is the love, right? Well, it's the manifestation in that sense, where the Holy Spirit manifests the love of God. The Son of God manifests the wisdom of the Father, or the wisdom of God. But just to, in some passages, equate person and energy does not mean they're isomorphically like merged, or that they're subsumed. There's still an essence energy distinction, but it's not wrong to call the Son the wisdom of God. And you see this in the argumentation about this. And I understand this because this actually tripped me up one time. Back in about 2015, I was actually tripped up by this question. I was debating a guy who ended up leaving Orthodoxy, and he was arguing with me, and he said, why would we call the Son the wisdom of God in Athanasius when wisdom is an energy of God? And the answer is you have to get later into the doctrine of the procession and the manifestation of the energies, and that's the answer.
Exactly. And
yeah.
Okay, so then this goes into the second part of my question, and sorry for kind of dragging this out, but it's, to me, this is really interesting because I was researching some rebuttals, and I was writing about this, actually, some rebuttals to Mark 13:32. Now, St. Basil, and I actually did look up, like I actually used some of those writings from On the Incarnation. It's like in section 54 where he talks about how God became man so that man can become God. And this goes into theosis. What's really interesting is that St. Basil in letter 236, where he talks about, he gives like 2 really good reasons as to why Christ does know the hour. The first reason he gives is rhetoric. He says, the term no man can be used. It's rhetorical. But then he says something really interesting. And he says, he basically says that because of monarchical Trinitarianism, Jesus does not say that he knows the hour because knowledge starts with the Father first. And the Son,
everything the Son has is a dependence relationship on the Father. So that's correct.
Exactly. So it started getting me thinking. Okay, so if that's going to be the case, then would this also be a reason as to why Christ knows the hour? Because would you say that wisdom is synonymous with omniscience?
That's a good question. You'd have to actually look at a lot of the patristic explanations and exegesis of what exactly is the connotation of divine wisdom. Sometimes they describe it as like the plan of creation, sometimes because of Proverbs 7 and 8. Sometimes they describe wisdom as sometimes it's even described as the Holy Spirit. For example, in Sirach and in Wisdom, the Book of Wisdom, like the Holy Spirit won't come and abide in a soul that is unrepentant or impure, and so it calls what abides in you in one place wisdom, and then another place the Holy Spirit. So we have also the identification of wisdom with the Holy Spirit. We have in other places where, as you said, Christ is called the wisdom of God. So wisdom is an energy common to all three, but manifests, as every energy does, in a unique way in each person. So the Father is the source of wisdom. The Son would be a unique manifestation of wisdom, and the Holy Spirit would be a unique manifestation of the wisdom of God. So I think but I think you're right to point to Basil in terms of monarchical Trinitarianism there too. And my talk, by the way, is called I Am That I Am, Essence, Energy, St. Athanasius, and Sedevacantist Cults, because this argument was actually a Diamond Brothers Tradcat argument that was used a long time ago, that, well, Athanasius says Jesus is the wisdom of God, so wisdom is the divine essence, and they're all the same. They don't realize how dumb that would be. It would be modalist. If you're going to collapse, if Jesus is an energy and an attribute, and the attributes are identical to the essence, then Jesus is the essence, and now you're a modalist. It's really stupid. But there's one more thing I want to recommend to you. You should read Crisis in Byzantium by Papadakis if you haven't read that, because it's a very important book for eternal manifestation. And also, you should read Florovsky's paper called Athanasius and the Doctrine of Creation, because he shows definitively that Athanasius teaches the essence energy distinction.
And read Wisdom of Solomon, specifically chapter 7 through 10. Those are good for seeing wisdom as a person too.
Wisdom 7 through 10, yeah, exactly, teaches the personification of the Spirit. Wisdom.
Okay. Yeah, because I know in chapter 75 on the 150 chapters, Palamas explicitly states that, I believe like I said, I'm driving, but I believe he says something to the effect of there's three realities in God. Mm-hmm. There is the essence, there are a triad of persons, and then there's the energy. So even
by the way, this is
it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is when you hear me always say Palamas talks about there's three planes in God, P-L-A-N-E. That's the thing I'm referring to. That right there.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, I won't take up too much of your time. Thank you so much, and I'll get on those readings.
Oh, good job, man. You're doing really good reading there. You're on the right track. Nick, did you want to say anything about that?
No, I was just gonna say Wisdom 7 through 10. It's really good for if you want to learn the personification portion of it. It literally calls wisdom like omnipresent, omniscient. Says that it was the one who rescued them in the flood. Yep. So it's like actually action bearing, someone that's doing something. So I think it's literally the most clear thing ever to and just a lot of people just don't read it because, most people that convert to Orthodoxy come from a Protestant background and they're never taught these books. So they never think to look into them.
Exactly.
And when I read Wisdom of Solomon, I was so mad that I was, that was
deprived of that. I felt the same way. Yeah. Because when I became Catholic back in 2003, I started reading the Deuterocanon. I was like, why were we deprived of this? And then when I became Orthodox, I reread the Deuterocanon. And we on my channel, guys, we do have a lecture through the entirety of Sirach. If you want to go back and find the Sirach lectures.